is where MAGA comes to talk. And we'll be live starting, well, we're live here now, but we'll be starting the podcast shortly. And did you guys catch Trump's press conference with the farmers? It was absolutely amazing. Just ended about half an hour ago. It was really good. It really was. But of course, you know, if President Trump cured cancer and AIDS, the liberals would tell us why it was a bad idea. Right? I mean, that's just the way it is. You know, he can do no right with these people. And we do have a lot to cover today. Holy smokes, do we have a lot to cover. President Trump doesn't take off for the holiday. I mean, he was late last night at the Kennedy Center Honors. He's having these long press conferences today. He just is, he's got more energy than I've got. I mean, I can barely keep up watching him on TV, right? Online. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. Okay. All right, I'm going to start the main live stream now. If you want to see and hear the audio and video that I share, you got to go to the main live stream, which is linked in the description of the episode, and I will be taking calls. So if you want to call in, the number is pinned in the live chat. Here we go. Welcome to the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian Craig, and this is where MAGA comes to talk. Thanks so much for joining. All right, so I want to talk about one of the most fake stories I've ever seen, and that is the affordability crisis. You know, the affordability crisis. I haven't heard those three words together in my life, and now until like 2 weeks ago. And now it's the first and last thing out of every paragraph of every fake news report, the affordability crisis. It does not exist. We're going to talk about that. And Dave Ramsey, the big financial guru, commented on the affordability crisis. I'm going to share that with you. We're going to talk about that. Now, just a while ago, President Trump had this meeting with the farmers. He's taking the profits from the tariffs. The money that the government is making in profit from the tariffs, the government of the United States is not a business that's in the business of making a profit, right? So when there's money being made, like with the government's making now with the tariffs, President Trump passes it along to the American people, right? All the taxpayers, we're going to get $2,000 each next year, sometime over the summer. And he's giving this big gift to the farmers to bail them out, okay? Because they're being unfairly abused by foreign countries and over government regulation from the Democrats that have been running the country. And it was an amazing press conference. And one of the things that President Trump did there, which was the most transparent president, the most transparent administration that will ever exist is going on right now. Because when President Trump is speaking at these things, we're seeing the government in action in real time, actually doing things, which we've never seen, not like this before. So they had this meeting. It was in the cabinet room. It's President Trump, some members of the cabinet, Treasury Secretary, Agricultural Secretary, some others, and a bunch of farmers. And he's got this rice farmer lady sitting next to him, and her family have been rice farmers forever and ever and ever. And she owns the family rice farm with 3 or 4 of her sisters. And she was talking about how countries around the world are dumping cheap rice in U.S. markets, making it difficult for them to sell their rice. And it's very important because it's not just their business, it's all the people they employ. And during the entire business cycle, how many people earn income off that, off each one of these farms. So he said, well, what countries are doing this? And she went through India, China. She was very specific. She said they're dumping a lot in Puerto Rico. I can't remember if it was India. And she said they used to be a U.S. And the Treasury Secretary is a couple people to Trump's right, and he gives an order to the Treasury Secretary to deal with that, to do what they've got to do to stop them from dumping this cheap rice, whether it's a 100 or 200% tariff, it's going to be done. And Thailand, and he asked her, she gave a few countries off the top of her head, India, China, Thailand. She said, there's others, I can get you a complete list. He said, give me a list of all of them. And then he gave an order to the Treasury Secretary of the United States, our openly gay Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, and told him to do it. Told him to put tariffs on them, on their rice, so they could stop dumping that rice and hurting American rice farmers. And you could see Scott Bessent writing the note down. When have you ever seen government in action? And President Trump was talking about these tariffs. You know, the left are challenging him on the tariffs, and they're going to the court and everything else. He says you need to be able to affect these tariffs immediately in real time. And, you know, this order that he gave to Bessent after he was informed about this from this one. Then there was another one. I couldn't quite hear all of it. He was talking to another person from the administration. I wasn't sure who it was. If you know, let me know in the comments. But he was talking about some problems with farmers selling and timber selling to the European Union. So President Trump said they can't do that. He says, give me 2 paragraphs on that. He says, I'll take care of it. They will not do that anymore. He says, we do a lot for them. They'll take care of this for us, the EU. You know, this is just real government action at work in real time, watching the President of the United States in an economic meeting, because that's what that was. The press was there because he wants to be transparent, but it's an economic meeting with members of the cabinet, members of the Congress, senior people in the administration and from different government agencies, the President of the United States, and farmers from various types of farms, telling him what the problems were and what they needed, and boom, he did it right there. That was just something, I don't know if we've ever seen anything like. Have we ever seen, other than President Trump, have you ever seen any president of the United States give an order live on TV after they were informed by a voter, by an American citizen about a problem, and tell a cabinet secretary to take care of it now? And then you see the cabinet secretary write it down, and you know he's on the phone already to whoever deals with India and China and Thailand. And she'll give the list of the other countries to Susie Wiles or the Secretary of Agriculture, and he'll take care of that too. This is absolutely amazing. And for all of these people that throw out this, I'm America, I don't support Trump, I'm America first. I've never seen America first at the level that we've seen with President Trump in my life. And you know what? We're not going to see it again. My name's Brian Craig. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast, where MAGA comes to talk. If you are new, make sure that you follow and subscribe on whatever platform you are listening on. The Brian Craig Show podcast is available on all podcast platforms. Wherever you get podcasts, just go there and search for The Brian Craig Show. And that's all the audio podcast platforms. If you want to catch the program live in video form, go to my YouTube channel. Go to YouTube or YouTube Music and search for The Brian Craig Show. You can get the podcast in video form and also catch it live at Brian Craig Show on YouTube. So, I mean, this is just a beautiful, amazing thing that we saw with the President of the United States today. It really is amazing. I was in awe. Just I was like, wow, I've never seen anything like this. And, you know, the Treasury Secretary being given an order by the President of the United States on foreign policy with multiple foreign countries at once, and you see him take the note to carry it out. Phew. That's amazing. Who can be an American and not support this great man doing this stuff, right? How could you be against what he's doing? I didn't know that Scott Bessent owned a soybean farm. Apparently he sold it when he took this job. I did not know that. He knows a lot about, so I didn't realize how important soybeans are. I don't know. I know soy boys are have too much soy, but Scott Bassett knows about farming and soy. All right, so this big lie that they've, if you're on hold, stand by. We'll get to the calls in just a bit. This big lie that they're selling or trying to sell, and I think they're having some success because, everybody's talking about it, but President Trump snapped back on it today in this meeting with the farmers. They keep talking about the affordability crisis. J.D. Vance said, I think it was at the cabinet meeting last week, he said it's a made-up manufacturer crisis, and he's right. There's no such thing as the affordability crisis. We all cannot afford everything we want. Some people can. Trump could afford everything he wants, right? Scott Bassett, he certainly can afford whatever he wants, but very few people can. So what does this mean? The affordability crisis. The economy is booming, and so far as prices are coming down, but the Biden regime, we had the highest inflation in any of our lifetimes, unless you're really old, right? Certainly the highest inflation in my lifetime. They create this crisis. President Trump and his team are fixing it, and they're blaming Trump and the Trump administration for the problems that was caused by the AutoPen administration. Now, Dave Ramsey was on Fox earlier today, and he was talking about the Trump economy. Let me play this for you. This is Dave Ramsey, who's the big financial guru. Everybody knows Dave Ramsey, and you may not always agree with him, but I think people like him or hate him. I'm not a big fan of Dave Ramsey, to tell you the truth. He seems a little cocky and arrogant to me, but that's okay. People say that about me too, and it's not true. I'm neither of those things. But I don't think anybody disagrees that Dave Ramsey understands money and the economy and business. Here's Dave Ramsey. Yeah, it's all BS. The affordability crisis does not exist. It is a made-up crisis. The media go along with these things. The fake news liberal media make things up because they want to trash Trump. But like Fox, a lot of times things are filler, right? Things are filler. Like it's the weekend, it's holiday time. Some people are off work, they're feeling a little lazy, so they make crap up. What they used to do is, like in the summertime, they would do these stories on shark bites if it was a slow news period. Because, before the era of Trump, summertime was a slow period in news. So every summer when it got slow, all you would hear about is shark bites off Florida. I've lived in Florida my whole life. I don't know anyone that's been bitten by a shark or a gator, but they would fill the stories up with these things. During slow news. The affordability crisis is becoming that. It's a crutch. A little lazy, not a lot going on in the news. The affordability crisis. Let's talk about that. Let's have a panel going on. There is no affordability crisis. It does not exist. It has been made up by the fake news media to make you think that there's some economic crisis going on in this country. There's no economic crisis in this country. President Trump is the solution to it, and he's fixing all of it. Now, this press briefing that he had after the meeting with the farmers was amazing. This fake news reporter really got put in her place by the president. Listen. Isn't that good? Wow. Oh boy, he's right. She's not prepared. And these reporters, when he says not prepared, yeah, he's right. Not only is the reporter not prepared, she's a very stupid reporter, because she doesn't come. It used to be, or at least I think it used to be. That's how I was always under the impression of. I was under the impression that in the past, people that rose to the level of, and by the way, Brian Glenn, I didn't hear Brian Glenn, Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend. Was Brian Glenn Marjorie Taylor Greene's boyfriend there? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you know? I don't know. But, oh, this is interesting. Okay, I'll play this in a second. I got some breaking news here I think I'm going to share in a second. It used to be that the reporters were informed. They were informed and educated and knew what was going on. This is an interesting thing. We got a hot mic moment with the president. Listen, this is right after that meeting today. There, you can see here, this is if you're watching on YouTube, they're leaving the cabinet room. Okay, see, these reporters are so stupid, right? This is a hot mic moment, but they just got, this goes back to how dumb and uninformed these reporters are. They just got some huge news here from the President of the United States, and as opposed to stopping from walking and let the mic pick up the rest of it, they keep walking because they're stupid. All they have are whatever talking points or other nonsense that they're plagiarizing from other news outlets that they're regurgitating and repeating. What he was just talking about is how the Democrats, in particular in the Senate, but the Democrats as a whole, are trying to run out the clock on this term so nothing gets done, right? That's why Alina Habba had to step down over the weekend. That's why a lot of these appointees are not being confirmed. The Democrats are doing all these things. They're trying to run out the time because they figure if they can get through this term, there'll be no justice because Trump won't be around to bring them to justice. Huge news story. And the media just, they're not interested because it wasn't on their prepared talking point. You know what it is with the media? They're just stupid people. Maybe they always were, but I don't think so. I think if you went back into the time when H.W. Bush and before were president, Reagan and the presidents, Lyndon Johnson, all those presidents, the people that rose to the level of the White House press corps understood what was going on, were educated, were very well informed, and while they've always been liberally biased in the media, it's just like Hollywood, it's just the way it's been, they still had brains. They still had information. Now, what do you have? I mean, the bar to become a White House correspondent for what used to be considered the major news outlets has been so lowered. You have uninformed, stupid people that don't even understand the words that are coming out of their mouth. They don't have a coherent thought that they came up with on their own. All they do is regurgitate what someone else said on some other fake news outlet. Like, well, any comment on the affordability crisis? When there's this hot mic moment, they're like, whoa, we got some news. Let me stop. Let me walk a little slower so I can pick this up on my mic. They don't even understand what's happening. It's amazing. It really is. Isn't it amazing? Oh my goodness. The Supreme Court, big hearing today. A little bit I'm going to play of it. This is Fox News reporting on it, the Supreme Court hearing today. Yeah. So, this is one of the things that the president was talking about with them trying to run out the clock, right? If there's somebody he wants to fire that works in the executive branch, he fires them. So what do? They go to some court, and some unelected hack judge somewhere rules that he doesn't have the authority, it gets tied up in the courts. And then this person that the president wanted to fire gets to keep their job. Based on the questioning today that came out of the Supreme Court, because we've got the conservative majority, it sounds like Trump's going to win that case. If you'd like to call in and you're watching live, the number is pinned in the live chat. It's toll free 888-465-2631. We'll take a quick break and be right back. All right, we're back. It's the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian Craig. Thanks for joining. If you're on hold, stand by. Okay, so over the weekend, there was a lot of news out of the Tim Pool podcast. He had Milo Yiannopoulos on with George Santos, and you wouldn't even know George Santos was there. George Santos, fresh out of prison, very controversial, and lots of great stories to tell. And Milo was like all, saying crazy stuff, and everybody's talking about Milo. You wouldn't even know George Santos was there. And then during the program, somebody had fired off some gunshots outside his compound. And he's got some big mansion. Some guy fired off some rounds. It's very scary. Since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, all of us in media, conservative media in particular, although I don't know what Tim Pool is, other than covering up his bald head with the cat. I don't know. I may be wrong about this. Maybe you have a different opinion, but Tim Pool seems to be a fence sitter to me. He doesn't really take a position. I don't know if he's liberal. I don't know if he's conservative. I don't know if he's libertarian. I don't know if he's... I don't know. Now, he does have controversial guests. I don't want to take that away from him. I got no beef with Tim Pool. I just... I don't know why someone would target him at all, because he's really not controversial. He has controversial guests on from every viewpoint. So I know there's controversy around the guest. So I don't know. We haven't gotten the details of this shooting other than it was right outside his property and no one was hurt. I don't know. I know he's got cameras all over the place like we all do. You're always on alert, right? I mean, there's so many crazy people out there. You hear some of them that call me on the program. It's I don't understand it. Other than liberals believe, and they're the tolerant left, right? So the tolerant left are so tolerant that they cannot tolerate anyone who disagrees with them. And if you disagree with the left, they think you should be dead. And that makes sense to liberals. I don't understand that. You know, and especially with Tim Pool, because he's such a fence sitter. Does anyone know what his political opinions are? I'm not talking about what they were years ago, because I know he kind of got his start with Vice, working at, covering the Occupy Wall Street during the Obama administration. I get that. And a lot of liberals come from Vice. But, if you look, there's a bunch of people on YouTube, a lot, that began at Vice and have massive channels now, even bigger than Tim Pool. I can't remember all their names, but like there's one girl who does like a science channel. She used to be at Vice. There's another guy that used to be at Vice. He used to be at Vice. So I don't know what it is about Vice when there are people leave Vice that they end up with these super huge podcast and YouTube channels, but there's something there. But Tim Pool, again, I maybe I'm very wrong. You can let me know, but I just don't think he takes much of a position on anything. And that's okay. That's his style. The reason I point that out is I don't know why someone would target him, since he's so unopinionated, right? If you're doing a talk show, generally, a person that you listen to that does any type of talk show, me, anybody, Ben Shapiro, anybody, they have opinions. And, right? And they're consistent in their opinions, hopefully. Tim Pool, I have no idea what Tim Pool's political philosophy is, if he has any. I used to watch him years ago. I stopped watching him because I find him just vanilla. There's also, there used to be a guy, this is an old expression that we used to have. There used to be a guy that worked at a radio station with Steve Kane and myself. And he had a talk show, and he was very well known. And we used to call him the Tofu Talk Show host. The Tofu Talk Show host. Do you know what that means? And I think Tim Pool fits into the Tofu Talk Show host label. And what that means is that, tofu has no taste, right? Tofu takes on the taste of whatever you fry in the pan with it. You put a little chicken in there, chicken broth, it tastes like chicken. You put some peanut butter in there, tofu tastes like peanut butter, right? And that's kind of how Tim Pool is. Tim Pool kind of like takes on opinions based on who's in the studio with him. And I used to watch him a lot, and I stopped watching because I like people that have opinions and share those opinions and give us some analysis at the same time, like I do, with what's going on there, even if I don't agree with them, although he does have controversial guests. But he made an announcement on his recent live stream. He does a daily show, and it's Tim Pool IRL. IRL meaning in real life. And let me share this with you. Okay. So what's he talking about there, right? What he's talking about doing, it seems to me, is no longer doing a live show to do a pre-recorded show. And I don't I don't buy what he's talking about here. Okay, there's a couple possibilities. I'm not denying that they had this incident, and I get it, and I don't blame him for being worried and all that stuff. But he's not going to walk away from his show. He just got married, and he makes a tremendous amount of money. Right, he's got a huge following, makes tremendous amount of money. But doing the live show as opposed to a recorded show. There's a couple things here. You've got to be there on time at a certain time every day. And I was watching his face when he was talking. Look at his eyes. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see his eyes. Watch his face and his eyes in particular. Okay, watching his eyes, I'm calling BS on all of this. I'm thinking there's a couple possibilities here. One, he wants to end doing the live stream so he doesn't have to be at. His eyes look like he's lying to me. Okay, if that's just me. If you guys make your own decision on that, he wants to not have to be in the studio on the air at a certain time between certain hours. He wants to be a little lazy and just do a show whenever he wants recorded, is what I think. Is one possibility and the highest possibility. Plus, he's newly married. He wants to go do things and maybe travel. And if you've got to do a daily live show, you've got to be in the studio. And that show is however long he does the show, right? I do a morning show that I start at about 5:20 to 5:30 a.m. every day. So around 5:30 a.m. and it goes till 9. So no matter what, I've got to be in the studio in those hours. That's my job, which is fine. I mean, I've been doing that for my whole life and I like those hours, but I got to be there at least 5 days a week. On the weekends, I can do whatever I want, although I still do a morning show on the weekends. And I also do a show in the afternoons, but I can be a little loose on the time, right? I can do the show at 3, at 2, at 4, or 5. I could do my afternoon show. But my morning show, which is every day, it's 5:30-ish till 9 a.m. And that's the way it is, and that's fine. But with that, there's obligations, and there's a lot of things that I can't do, or places I can't go, or parties I can't go to, right? And because I got to be up at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning to prep to be on the air at 5:30 live in the morning. And a newly married guy, I don't think he wants to have a daily obligation to be someplace at a particular time that he has to report to every day, even though it's in his big old mansion, and for whatever the time he does the show. That's it. He also mentioned Rumble. He's got some deal with, a lot of conservative influencers made a deal with him, the Quartering, and a few others. And they have an obligation to be on the air with them at certain times of the day for a certain period of time, 5 days a week. And I think he just doesn't want to have to do that. I think he wants to do the show whenever he feels like it. And I'm not denying that this incident happened. We know very little about it, but I think he's using this incident over the weekend, which could have been some guys hunting in the mountains for all I know. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe. I don't know. But he's using this incident over the weekend to get out of the obligation of having to do the show at a certain time every day. And there is some contractual agreement that he made with those other streamers I was talking about, the Quartering and a few others made the same agreement. He's using it to get out of that time obligation. In my opinion, just looking at his face and listening to what he said. You guys agree with that? Let me know. All right, the number to call in is toll free. It's 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. It's a toll-free call. no matter where you're listening. If you're watching live on YouTube, the number is pinned in the live chat. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian, this is Sean from Massachusetts.
Hey, Sean, what's up?
Well, regarding this whole thing with Tim Pool, if you look at his history, and I've watched him a few times, he throughout some of the years, he's been saying that he's going to change his programming. He's no longer going to take super chats on his live streams. He's no longer going to this. He says, I'm going to quit this. He's been kind of throwing it out there and then throwing it back in again so many times. I've seen this, and I know this incident, it probably did happen, and I feel bad that it did happen. That's
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
And I think that he's just thrown out there. He gets emotional. He is like that. He does it in such a plain manner, of course. He is vanilla. And but I think what he's doing is he's saying a whole bunch of stuff. He overreacts a lot. He says a lot of things, and then he kind of backpedals on everything.
I like how he says the show's no longer about costing money. It's costing. What? He's not in a for-profit business. Give me a break, right? I don't know what it is with these millennials. Yeah, he's a millionaire. I don't know why these millennials and Gen Zs act like money's dirty, right? Like they're embarrassed. I do whatever I can do to make money. I'm not embarrassed by it. I have a family to support.
Yeah, of course. I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to put on this. I don't know if they were told to put on that kind of image, that attitude towards money. I don't know. Maybe they all have a protocol. But
you'll never hear me apologize earning a living.
And that's perfectly fine and normal. I mean, that's great. That's being human, being American, and that's a great thing. And the Jeremy from the Corning does the same. I think Jeremy, I like some of his stuff, but he's a fence sitter too, and he likes to kind of skittle, but he trails behind Tim Pool a lot of the time. He's always kind of up his a lot of the time because he's
what I was saying with Tim Pool, it looks like Tim Pool. I'm not denying this incident happened and it's got awful. All right, and I feel his pain with that. But to me, it looks like he's using the incident to get out of the obligation of having to do a daily live show between certain hours of the day. It's getting in the way of his skateboarding or whatever, and it's too much. It's too much of an obligation.
He could be doing that. He probably wants to work, make this amount of money he wants, but not have to do as much. I don't know. Maybe he is going to do that. But again, I don't think that
he's newly married, and I'm sure his new wife. There's a lifestyle that she married into that she's accustomed to, even though they're newly married. So
another thing about him too is when he had Donald Trump on his show, I didn't like the way they presented that. That was kind of when Trump was still running and candidate, and he had him on the show, and it was just so half-assed the way they had it on there. I said, come on, dude. He had him on there, but he didn't the way Tim Pool set it up. He didn't have it the way.
I don't remember it too. I remember it, but not that clearly. I think he was fence sitting. He did not want people that didn't like Trump not to watch him anymore because he had Trump on. He was non-committal. Was my memory. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my recollection.
Well, he's a fence sitter. He's a fence sitter. Exactly that. That's what he's playing. And I don't know if I can't really. I've listened. Like I said, I listened to a few of his shows. I don't watch him religiously by any means. Yeah. But I've caught a few of his things. Sometimes they talk about something I've caught him talking about certain things that are interesting.
Yep. Well, listen, I'm gonna move on, but I appreciate the call. All right, you take care. All right, let's take another call or two. Ooh, I just heard it's pouring down rain outside. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Brian. It's Michael in California. How's your day going?
All right, Michael. What's on your mind?
I'm in total agreement with you about this fake affordability crisis that's supposedly going on. People look into the context of what they're actually saying. If you look at where the most expensive states to live in are, it's California, New York, Massachusetts, and Maryland are the top 5 most expensive states to live in. Mm-hmm. If you go, I just recently saw a post online from Moore, Oklahoma, and gas is $1.99 there.
Wow.
That's never going to happen. That's never going to happen in states where the ones I just listed in California, especially where I live, because of our idiot governor and
You know, like,
the
you know,
supermajority of
here in
liberals
Florida,
Sacramento.
you know, gas is different based on the neighborhood, right? If you're in a high-end neighborhood, gas is more than if you're in the ghetto, you know. But gas is
Yeah.
between $2.50, $2.60 a gallon, right?
Yeah.
In the state of Florida, 57 cents of every gallon is tax, right? Isn't that crazy? So if we didn't have the tax, we'd be under $2 in Florida in most instances.
Same with California. We are taxed out of the wazoo. If we just for breathing air, we're taxed. I mean, it's getting that ridiculous over here, but that's neither here nor there. But like I said, those are the most expensive states to live in, and those are where the most complaints are coming from. Especially in New York and New Jersey, the most recent elections that we saw, that quote unquote, oh my God, the world's turning against Trump when it's not. Those are the people are complaining about
this made up
in those states the most.
This made up affordability crisis is to try to portray Trump as a failure when it comes to the economy. That's what they're trying to do, and he's doing incredible things for the economy.
And these idiots just elected liberals who are costing them to live in they're making them poorer. You know what I mean? They're not making life easier. Like, what do you say? What do you think's going to happen now? They're not going to take down prices over in New Jersey and New York. They're just going to keep on going up with their policies that they're going to enact.
Exactly.
Like, they're really that stupid.
Yes.
You know, like,
yes,
your life's not going to get better there.
No.
You know, you just made it worse.
Correct. Yeah.
And people are going to look at that, and come the midterms. I heard Steve this morning. I was sounding a little down in the dumps about the midterms and worried about the midterms, but people are going to look at New Jersey and New York and California, and they're going to like, no, we don't want that in control of Congress again.
Steve's ex-wife passed away over the weekend. He has 3 kids with her.
Yeah, I heard about that. Okay, I'm sorry to hear about that.
You know, and you know, I brought that up today. I didn't bring it up before, but I brought it up today because this guy called in. It's like, well, where's Steve been? He hasn't been on the air. Well, he's been, you know, he has 3 children. And he has a lot of grandchildren with his second wife. He's been dealing with that. I wanted to rub some salt in the wound. I did not know she had passed away because I had not talked to Steve over the weekend, but last I heard she was in ICU.
Yeah.
But so Steve was a little down in the dumps over that. So I think that's where a lot of that was coming from this morning.
And like people like that need to stop watching the news all the time. Like that's what makes people even more depressed. You know what I mean? Like I understand it's part of his job and he has to do it and everything to stay informed, but the less news you watch, the better off your health will be, and your mental health will be actually.
It's tough when it comes to show prep. I don't watch the TV news, and I find the TV news it basically hypnotizes you, and you don't really absorb anything.
It's just muck for your brain. Is pretty much what it is.
Yeah, not the. I know people always are talking about doom scrolling, but. You know,
that's where the manufactured affordability crisis comes from, is the media.
That's right. Yeah, I know. You know, listen, I wish that I could afford everything I wanted.
Yeah, same.
You know, I mean...
I wish I could afford...
Yeah. What? Anything.
I wish I could afford a 5,000 square foot house, but that's not plausible right now.
And I'd like to be able to fly first class every time I fly, but I don't. You know? I mean, it's.
In all honesty, I don't think even if I had that money, I don't even think I would do that every day.
Let me tell you,
that's how you burn through money.
You know, I could fly first class. Because I don't fly that much, right? So if I were to spend the extra money, it'd be, you know, I could justify it, right? Because I don't travel that much.
Yeah.
But what? So I got a little bigger area on the plane and feel important for the 2.5 hour, 4 hour flight. I mean, what's the? I could go out and buy like a gold coin for that.
Why would you want to spend $4,000 on a plane ticket? That's ridiculous.
As opposed to $250. It's just stupid.
Yeah.
You know, there was a video. I saw somebody the other day. They had I can't remember where they were flying, and I think it was JetBlue. And Ivanka Trump was on the plane, and she was in coach with her whole family. They're billionaires.
Yeah,
they're richer than Trump.
Yeah, they're economically smart people because they know that they're going to burn through more money spending first class tickets than.
Jared Kushner has more money. They travel a lot. Jared Kushner has more money than Donald Trump, and they're flying coach on JetBlue. I was in shock.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I applaud them for doing that because they know how expensive it is.
Yeah, this guy took a video. He couldn't believe she was sitting behind him. He was in shock. I would be too.
Yeah.
In shock too.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you have a great day and take care.
All right, take care. All right. If you're on hold, hang in there. It's the Brian Craig Show podcast. I'm Brian Craig. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. It's the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name is Brian Craig. The Brian Craig Show podcast available on all podcast platforms. You can catch the live show in video form on YouTube and YouTube Music. Just search for The Brian Craig Show. And if you're on hold, hang in there. If you'd like to call in and you're watching live, the number's pinned in the live chat. It's toll-free, 888-465-2631. A lot of what, it's sometimes we got to get bogged down on some of these things that are going on, because President Trump's agenda and then the future MAGA presidents after him is so important, and they're trying to mess up our movement on so many different levels. And I've talked a lot since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, which of course was about doing damage to the MAGA movement. Talked a lot about different people that are trying to destroy our movement. And two of them are Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. And Tucker Carlson, I was talking about him today. He's buying a home in Qatar. Very strange. And then something has been really going viral on X involving Nick Fuentes. In fact, Elon Musk posted on X over the weekend that Nick Fuentes is a Fed. And this is something that a lot of people believe, as is and the same with Tucker. And there's a lot of data on X about this, so you guys can look at it yourselves. But there's one I want to share. Listen to this. A new report exposes that 92% of accounts boosting Nick Fuentes are fully anonymous, no name, no photo, no location, and most are single-purpose groper pages. His viral posts are heavily pushed by foreign accounts from India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And there's a lot more details if you go through some of Elon Musk's posts about it. And Elon Musk, he owns Twitter, so he sees the back end that we don't see. So he knows what's going on. And Nick Fuentes is a creation of the deep state to try to destroy the MAGA movement. And he's done a lot of damage. And I'm so glad that this has been going viral today and people are actually seeing it. I have a lot on my X because I did post a couple other stories about it. Let me see if I can find another one about it. No, maybe I didn't post the others. Well, regardless, there's a lot on X about it. And whether or not he's a Fed, we don't know for sure. But certainly the deep state, if he's not a Fed, they're using him to do political propagandizing, destroying our movement. And a lot of people may say, well, then why do all these people keep interviewing him? Patrick Bet-David, Piers Morgan, for views and clicks and shares. That's it. It's clout chasing. That's why they're doing it. And my suspicions, and many of you who have suspicions, it looks like it's true. Whether or not he's a Fed, we don't know. But we know that his reach is not organic, right? And so many of these people like him, they don't talk about the issues anymore. All they talk about is what people are saying about them. That becomes like their whole shows now, right? What people are saying about them. Well, it looks like it's starting to fall apart for both Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. They're going to be there. They're not going anywhere. But they're being exposed and called out. All right, now I wanted to share this. I saw this video, and I'd like to think this is a minority opinion in the minority community, but I don't know if it is. Listen. Oh my goodness. She's serious. First of all, the only people that owned cotton plantations were very wealthy Democrat people. Not very many people owned slaves. Not very many people owned plantations, okay? On top of that, 80% of Americans, it's even higher now probably. This was done, there was a study done in the early 2000s. There was an article written, it might have been the late 90s, early 2000, the great David Horowitz, he wrote an article after doing extensive research. 80% of Americans are descendant of immigrants who came to the United States after the Civil War. So what role would they have in any of that, right? They don't even have ancestors here. Now, so far as the heat, here I am in South Florida. Florida is as hot as it gets, right? Especially during, like August and that time of year, And people that are new to Florida, the humidity kills you. I'm used to the humidity. Yeah, I don't even notice it anymore. But I remember when I was a kid and I lived in Ohio and I'd fly to Florida over the summer. As soon as I would get off the plane, and at the airport, the air felt heavy, right? You get used to it. But when I first moved to Florida was 81-ish, around 1981. I lived in Florida since then. I was 10. So I've lived in Florida since 1981, I think 81, 82. I know I saw Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan in Florida, and that was 82. So I'd been here for a while. So 81, I moved here when I was 10. And when I moved to Florida, most places did not have central air conditioning like you have now. I couldn't believe it. We didn't, no, you just didn't. Homes, schools, there was no central air conditioning. You would go to offices and businesses. Now, a lot of them had it, but a lot didn't. And in fact, my mother bought a home in Fort Lauderdale. She bought it in the 80s when it was built in the early 50s, my mother's house. She still lives there today in Fort Lauderdale. It did not come with central air conditioning. She added it in. They had to install it. My mother and stepfather it didn't have central air in it. And I don't know how people used to do it. But people were different, and they could take the heat that we can't take now. But back to this lady, is this how a lot of African Americans feel? That white people always owe them an apology for things that none of us had anything to do? None of us that are here that have a long family history in this country, like me or people that are descendant of slaves, we're not here by choice. You're here by choice if, as an adult, you came to this country from another country. Like Melania is an immigrant. She chose as an adult to come here. She chose to be in America. But the rest of us were just born here too. You don't hear us complaining, right? You don't hear us complaining. Who chose to be here? I mean, I'm glad that my ancestors are here, and I'm glad that I was born in America, and this is the best country in the world. But this idea that, well, we didn't choose to be here. Our ancestors were brought here. Well, my ancestors may not have been brought here, but they chose to come here, and they didn't ask me about it, right? It's really amazing how, we were talking about earlier in the program about how the media have sold this affordability crisis. The two biggest poisons in American society are the fake news media and the left-wing education system. The left-wing education system has convinced so many people of so many terrible things about our country. Listen to this. This is Joy Reid, who not only is bald, she doesn't wear wigs anymore. She's got a receding hairline. If you watch on YouTube, you can see her hairline's like almost to the back of her head. Wow. I never noticed that before. Massive receding hairline. But anyway, listen to Joy Reid. This is a new video from over the last few days. Oh my goodness. Well, that's left-wing history and a left-wing viewpoint. When I was young, I'd hear conservatives all the time. You would hear conservatives in the 80s during the Reagan era refer to the liberals, the Democrats, as the hate America first crowd. And I was young then, so I didn't have an understanding of how true that was. And I remember back then, I would think to myself, no, who would hate this? No, come on. They're liberal. They're Democrats. They disagree, but they can't hate this country. This is a great country. But they do. They actually do. They are the hate America first crowd. Listen to Don Lemon here. This is Don Lemon. And listen to this. You know what? I know a lot of black people, and have over my entire life, who either they or their families came here voluntarily from the Caribbean, things like that. But anyway, rewind a little bit with Don Lemon. Oh, isn't that nice? Well, wow. What a journalist, huh? Well, sure you can, but you're criticizing him for using that language. So is it something that's inappropriate or is it appropriate, Don Lemon? But here's the thing. So you have Don Lemon and you have Joy Reid, who are hardcore America haters, right? Both of them are millionaires many times over. You know, when Don Lemon was fired from CNN, he got a $10 million severance package. That's amazing. Joy Reid was making millions of dollars at MSNBC. So I don't know where they get off thinking that this is some terrible country. How many of you lost a job and then when they fired you, they gave you $10 million like they did Don Lemon? Sounds like these two have had great opportunities in this country. They're very wealthy. They want for nothing. They never will. Now they've got egos, so they have to keep doing these loser waste of a time programs that nobody cares to watch. And maybe he's blown through his $10 million with his stupid Lemon Live thing that he's doing here. But both Don Lemon and Joy Reid are millionaires many times over. Why are they angry? And I bet you this. I bet you that Don Lemon and Joy Reid, I promise you this, they take all the Trump tax cuts, right? And the tax cuts in the big, beautiful bill that go into effect next month, I promise you, Trump-hating, American-hating Don Lemon and Joyless Reid both take all of the Trump tax cuts. I promise you. We'll be right back.
absolute best. They gave me a great price. They did the job when they said they were going to do it. They finished the job when they said they were going to do it. The materials they used, absolutely the best. I want to thank Tom. I definitely want to thank Scott. And definitely want to thank Scott's crew. These people are number one. And I just want your listeners to know, Tom Laporta at Tom Laporta Roofing. If you need a new roof, call Tom at Tom Laporta Roofing. You're not going to go wrong. You're not going to disappoint.
You were named it. Call Tom Laporta at Laporta Roofing on his cell phone. 954-604-4602. 954-604-4602. And online, laportaroofing.com. All right, we're back. It's the Brian Craig Show podcast. My name's Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. All right, so there's a new poll out, and it's got some good things in it, some things I'm not too happy with. Listen to this. Here's the headline. Ron DeSantis most electable in 2028 GOP poll, but not the first choice. It's a very interesting poll, and this poll's starting to get a little traction. You know, let me tell you, Ron DeSantis, we can't trust. I mean, he lied to the president. He lied to all of us who voted for him in Florida, and all of that, right? You can't trust this guy. He's with the establishment. The never-Trumpers that shot Trump and Butler, their plot. I'm not saying DeSantis was a part of this plot. I'm talking about the assassination plot against President Trump and Butler. What their plan was that things wouldn't have turned out that well that day, obviously. They were going to nominate Nikki Haley as the Republican nominee. She was in second place in the primaries, and they were going to make Ron DeSantis her running mate. He was in third place, okay? That's what they were going to do. I'm not saying he was involved in the plot. Don't misunderstand me, but that's what their plan was. And you can't trust this guy. That being said, he's a great governor. He has done everything that he said he would do. You know, he promised that we would have open carry in Florida before he left Tallahassee. That's our capital. We have it. He has a great proposal going on right now to rid us of property taxes on our homes, which would be great. I mean, that's a very exciting one. I mean, he's done a lot of things. He's a very good conservative governor who's doing all these MAGA things. You just can't trust him, right? And it's really sad. You know, he let his wife work him up. And Jeb Bush work him up, and he ran against Trump when he said he wouldn't. You just can't trust the guy. But I'm going to go through this poll because this is it. Don't rule out the governor yet. Republicans. Now, this is an interesting thing with this poll. By the way, all this information and all my show prep, even the things I don't get to, are on my X, Brian Craig Show on X. So if you follow me on X, you can get all my show prep, everything I talk about. Republicans don't want to vote for Governor Ron DeSantis, but they think others might. Isn't that a little weird? That's the takeaway from the latest Yale Youth poll, which shows both Governor Ron DeSantis and Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the mid-single digits at 6% and 5%, respectively. Far behind, see, this is the good news, though, far behind the 51% backing Vice President J.D. Vance for first choice. So he's got 52%. DeSantis has got 6%, and Marco at 5%. But this is when it gets weird. But when the survey asked respondents who is more electable, the governor and the nation's leading diplomat are in better shape. In a MaxDiv test, Republicans viewed DeSantis 79% and J.D. Vance 75% as the most electable against a hypothetical Democrat in a general election, followed by Rubio at 71%, Don Jr. at 67%. This is in Florida Politics, which, you know, political website covering Florida politics, of course. The governor keeps getting that question from reporters, tells them he's not looking, saying he has his hands full and he's not thinking about anything regarding his next political move. Well, I don't believe that. But that's a very strange poll, right? They only 6% of those polled want him to run and want him to be the next president, right? 51% want J.D. Vance, but they think that people around the country are going to want Ron DeSantis over J.D. Vance. So I thought that was a very strange thing. I really did. Didn't you guys? Absolutely. It's a strange poll, but the only problem that we have in the MAGA movement is that we have too many highly qualified, great MAGA candidates. DeSantis isn't one of them. Marco's one of them. Pete Hegseth is one of them, right? J.D. Vance, obviously. We have so many great people. We have more qualified candidates than we do positions, right? If you're on hold, stand by. I may or may not get to the calls. I don't know. If not, you can call me tomorrow morning. What's going on in Minnesota with the Somalis, with the $8 billion in theft, all eyes are on Minnesota and what's going on. But Somalians are not just in Minnesota. They have them all over the country. And like most of this new wave of immigrants, they do not assimilate as Americans. They stay whatever their country. Basically, they set up colonies inside the United States, which is so strange. This stuff with Don Lemon and Joyless Reed I was playing earlier. The liberals consider us to be colonists, and we have no right here because we're colonists. But they have no problem with the Somalians or the Latin Americans colonizing us, even though they're colonizing the same land that they claim belongs to the Indian. It's confusing. But Somalians are have these colonies in states all over the country. I didn't realize, including Vermont. Look at this. This is a flagpole in Vermont. Look what they're doing. They're flying the Somalian flag. And you know what? There's no American flag there. This is a school in Vermont. The flagpole at the school is flying only one flag, the Somalian flag. There's not even an American flag or the flag of Vermont, just the flag of Somalia. I've never seen anything like it. That's crazy, and that's a problem. And they don't even realize what it is they're doing. The only thing I can say about it that's good, if this really isn't good, at least it's not flying above the American flag. There is no American flag there. It is very strange. It's very odd. But a point is being made by them. They believe they've conquered this country. And in some respects, they were close to it. If Donald Trump had not been reelected to the second and non-consecutive term, we would have been conquered by all these different people that they were bringing over here who have no interest in becoming Americans. And President Trump, he said it just perfectly the other day in the cabinet meeting. He says they come here from these third world countries. He said Somalia is not even a country. It's just people walking around killing each other. Really, it's true. It's prehistoric in its barbarity over there, right? And they come over here and tell us that they want us to run this country the Somalian way, whatever that is. And they do something like this. I remember that after 9/11, the liberals were complaining that people were flying American flags. When Baghdad fell during Operation Iraqi Freedom, a couple Marines put an American flag up over a Saddam Hussein statue at the University of Baghdad. The liberals freaked out. They had to take it down because of it. But raising the Somalian flag at a public school, that's scary. That's what happens when a country is conquered, is when foreign flags are flying above it. Pretty scary stuff, isn't it? Absolutely it is. If you'd like to support my content, become a Patreon supporter. There's a link in the description of the program on whatever platform you're listening on. If you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to exclusive content that is only posted to my Patreon page, including exclusive live streams only on the Patreon platform, commercial-free editions of all my podcast episodes, and much more. If you're a top Patreon supporter, you get your name up on the screen and a live on-air thank you shout-out on each episode. So the names you will hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, and Doris. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you all. Again, if you'd like to become a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description of this episode on whatever platform you're listening on, or you can go directly to patreon.com/Real Brian Craig Show. Patreon.com/Real Brian Craig Show. My name is Brian Craig. This is the Brian Craig Show podcast, where MAGA comes to talk. I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching. Take care.